Welcome everyone to our breakout session here for injury rehab. My name is Eva Popper with the Sports Medicine Institute, and I'm just going to dive right in because we have 30 minutes to go over 3 injuries and try to answer some questions as well. If you want to learn more about the Sports Medicine Institute, head to our expo and you can find some videos with our therapists and a link to our website and more great information there. So we're going to be starting with rehabbing IT band pain, right, which you can have at the knee. You can also have kind of up at the hip. And our focus is going to be twofold, increasing range of motion, decreasing tone and tension in these muscles, and then increasing and developing more strength to maintain proper positioning during our activities. So we're going to get right in and start with rolling the lateral quad and the IT band. So when we're doing this, we're going to start on our sides, and this can be quite painful, so you can always have your other foot in front of you to take some tension. You can use, again, your forearms and your arms to take some tension here. You can decide how much pressure you want to put. When we're rolling, again, we're focusing on finding tight spots, hanging out, and sinking in. I can tell you that there's going to be quite a few. If you have IT band issues, you're going to feel a lot of tension through here. And when I land on a spot, I'm kind of sinking in here, little micro movements, maybe side, forward and back here, up and down a little bit. And again, really trying to think about relaxing. So I'm trying to let my leg be heavy and sink into the roller to affect as much change as possible. I think one area that people often disregard when they're trying to work through this injury is the lateral quad and IT right near the knee here. So you want to make sure that you're getting all the way down to the attachment points here. So I'm going to set myself up on the roller, hang out here. Again, I'm supporting myself with my back foot. If I want more tension, I can put my opposite leg on top, and I'm sinking in right at that attachment spot. You can also use a ball here sometimes, but I can be pretty effective with the roller trying to just get into that lower part of the attachment. You're going to work all the way through that lateral quad, all the way through that IT band, and up to that femoral head, the hip joint right here. We're going to move on. So grab a ball if you have a ball, and we're going to work on the glutes. So you can use something like this as a trigger point roller, but you can also, like I said, use a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball, a massage ball, and you want to choose something that's going to give a good amount of tension, but you should also be able to handle the pain and tolerate it, right? Otherwise, your muscles are going to guard against it. So when we're thinking about the glutes, we're really focusing on the side of the glutes, glute medius, minimus, and TFL. Remember that the glutes come all the way up to the top of the pelvis. So I'm going to kind of find a center spot in there with the roller and just lean my weight onto that roller. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. We're sinking in, small little movements. Oftentimes in the glutes, you're going to find trigger points, and these are going to cause some referral pain. Referral pain is just dysfunctional kind of motor unit sending a pain signal to another part of the body. So if I'm on my glute medius here, I might feel some referral pain lower down in my glute. I might even feel pain down in the hamstring. As I move closer to the TFL, and the TFL is really almost on the front of that hip. So you get that bony structure, the ASIS here, and you get the femoral head here, right in between there. That's where we're aiming for with the roller or the ball. And we're sinking in there. And again, might get some referral pain going down the leg. And the goal here is to release tension, release these trigger points. You want to spend a few minutes at least on each muscle group to make sure that you're actually affecting some change. Once we have gotten some release in those areas, then we're going to move on to the activation and the strengthening that we need to try to stabilize the hip so that we're not putting so much pressure on the IT band when we're running or doing other activities such as that. So we're going to be working on strengthening the glutes, both the glute medius and the glute maximus. So we're going to lay on our side, legs stacked one on top of the other, hips roll forward, and we're engaging the glute medius, lifting up and holding. So you want to make sure that you're feeling this muscle here engaging. If you're feeling the front of your thigh, you may need to adjust. So you don't want to lift straight up, and you want to make sure that your hips are rolled forward. So you would do about 10 sets of these, 5-second holds, really get a nice muscle burn there. Then if we're working on the glutes, we're going to be doing a glute bridge. So we're going to lay on our back and squeeze the glutes, pressing the hips up. People often make the mistake here of arching the back. So we only want to go as far as we can, engaging those glutes. So I'm really going to squeeze the glutes the whole time, holding here in the bridge. This should be fairly challenging, but if it's not, you can try to lift one leg, making sure that your hips are not dropping. Hips are staying even. That's the whole goal of this exercise. If you find that when you're trying to lift a leg, you drop your hip, then you want to go back to that double leg stance and just squeeze those glutes, make sure they're working for you. Next, we're going to go on to working the core. We're going to do a side plank and then a front plank. We can do the side plank on your knees or with your legs straight. We'll start with on our knees just to explain that. You're going to have knees, hips, shoulders in a straight line and elbow right under the shoulder. As you press up from here, again, we're trying to engage the core. So you're going to get some of that glute medius and that lateral part of the abs, really thinking about engaging as you push away from the ground. There should be a nice space here at the shoulder. You don't want to sink into the rib cage there. And I can now feel these obliques working, holding here. You can add some movement, so dropping the hip and driving up. But again, you only want to do as much as your body can handle. So you want to push yourself, but not do more than you can do so that your technique is not proper. Then we move on to front plank, which most of us are familiar with. So just getting into a push-up position. Again, making sure all parts of your body are engaged. I'm pressing into the floor, pulling my hands apart. Abs are nice and tight. Glutes are squeezed. And we're looking for hip stability again, right? So we don't want to drop our hips here. We don't want to have our hips drop down. And we're just holding into this position about 30 seconds. Then we're going to go ahead and do a more functional movement for the glute medius, the runner's pose. So we're going to start in a single leg stance, knees slightly bent, dropping those hips back. Now my weight should be more on my heels so I can wiggle my toes. That makes sure that I'm really engaging the glutes. And I'm going to bring my foot back, barely putting my toe on the ground just for a little bit of balance. I should feel that glute medius working already. I can add an arm swing in. And with this exercise, you can challenge yourself in numerous ways. You can have a TheraBand attached to your other leg and drive through. You can do toe taps around. Again, just adding instability and making sure that you're using that glute medius. Now we've loosened up the tissue. We've done some strengthening. We're going to finish with some mobilization or some stretching exercises. And the areas we're going to focus on are anterior lateral thigh here. So working on hip extension. Again, what we need when we're running to make sure that we're supporting our hip structure and we're not putting too much stress on the IT band. So you're going to be in a kneeling lunge position. Actually go sideways so you can see this a little bit better. You want to make sure that you keep your hips square. So I'm not opening up to one side or the other. I'm going to squeeze my glute, so I'm tilting my pelvis. I'm going to raise my arm up, so I'm elongating through my abdomen. And then I'm going to sink forward and just do a little side bend here. Again, making sure to keep that glute squeeze, neutral spine. I'm not arching in my back. And then come back to neutral. And continue to do this about 15 or 20 times. And you're really going to feel that anterior thigh, anterior hip area open up, dropping in a little bit deeper each time. And then lastly, we're going to work on hip rotation. So we're going to be in a figure 4 position. So on your back, leg is crossed, knee is going to be pulled towards you, and you're going to be pushing out and then pulling in. So you can adjust how far your knee is in is going to determine how much of a stretch you're getting here, that foot that's on the floor. So that can be further out if it feels like you're getting enough of a stretch here, or you can bring it knee closer to you. You're going to be pressing out as far as you can, getting a good stretch. That's going to get through TFL, coming back across and getting a stretch through the glute medius. I would be laying all the way down, but I have my mic box attached here, so I can't do that. But you'd be laying flat on your back. And again, pulling in, pressing out, about 15 times in each direction, working on that hip rotation. And there you have the basics for IT band rehab. We'll go to a few questions here if we have any.
Hey, Eva, thank you. That was awesome. I have a couple questions. Here's one. I have some right shoulder pain and try to stretch my pecs because I sit at a desk a lot, but that doesn't seem to receive the tenderness.
It doesn't seem to
relieve the tenderness.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay. So let's actually, with that, let's go into our shoulder rehab plan and see if what we go through can answer that question. If it doesn't seem to help after you try this program, then I will check out the question chat box and I can get back to you with a specific email. So we're going to dive right into the shoulder pain, and hopefully that will give you some more things to try for that shoulder pain. So you're on the right track, and when we're talking about shoulder pain and soft tissue work, we're going to work right now just on 3 areas: the pecs, the lats, and the infraspinatus, which is the rotator cuff muscle that's located on the back of your shoulder there. So with the pec, generally a very painful area to work. Again, I'm going to use this trigger point roller here. You can use a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball, a massage ball. And the area of the pec that we're trying to work is right from that shoulder joint coming all the way down towards the sternum. You really want to be careful that you're not putting pressure right on the anterior part of the shoulder. So you're going to drop down a little bit into that soft spot and start there. And you're going to just rest the ball or the trigger point. Hopefully I don't get the mic in the way here. Right on that pec muscle. And again, you're going to hang out. You can add some movement here. So lifting the arm straight up and coming back down. Sometimes that's going to be just too painful and you just want to hang out, find those soft tissue areas that are really tight and spend a little time trying to release those areas. Then moving on to the lats. The lats are quite a big muscle, right? So they're going to attach up in the front of the humerus, front of the arm here. They run down the side of the body and across, attaching to the spine here. And then you have the fascia, the thoracolumbar fascia, that also attaches there. So you really want to get as much of that tissue as you can when you're rolling. So I'm going to lay on my side and start down in the kind of the middle of my rib cage. And you want to be mindful that your ribs are bony structure. You don't want to use maybe a PVC type roller, something a little softer. And again, I'm going to try to find some of that soft tissue that feels real tight. Hang out, go back and forth here, and then move up a little bit closer to the armpit and get closer to that lat attachment. Then in order to get the rest of the lat, we're going to turn onto our back and focus a little bit more on right inside of the shoulder blade, getting some of that tissue there. And then even coming all the way down to the low back to get that thoracolumbar fascia that we just spoke of, coming all the way down to the attachment right at the top of the pelvis. And then finally, we're going to focus specifically on this infraspinatus muscle, which is the muscle right on the back of your shoulder blade. So again, you're going to take the ball or the trigger point roller and position that directly under that muscle. So it's really right behind the armpit that you're looking for. And you should find some really tender spots here. Sometimes, again, you're going to get that referral pain. It can refer to the front of the shoulder, sometimes up the neck, and you're going to hang out there, just moving the ball and the roller every once in a while to find a new spot and try to sink in there. Then moving on to the strengthening for the shoulder, we're going to do internal and external rotation. We're going to do a side-lying exercise here, but you can also use a TheraBand. I would suggest using very light weight, 2 or 3 pounds. I only had a 5-pound at my disposal, so I'm just going to demonstrate with that. You're going to have the elbow and the shoulder in a straight line, your elbows resting right on your hip. It's really important to be lined up straight and not have your elbow kind of behind your hip there. You're going to start with the weight down by your side and then slowly rotating externally, bringing your arm up as high as you can and slowly back down. You should feel a nice little muscle burn in that posterior part of the shoulder, and you're going to do about 15 to 20 of these. Again, sometimes just a can of beans is enough, 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, maybe 3 pounds at the most. Then for internal shoulder rotation, same idea on your side. Line your elbow up so you're at 90 degrees here, and you're going to rotate up so you're coming all the way to touch the opposite arm and slowly back down. This one, you really want to be mindful that the path your arm takes is straight. It's going to tend to want to do something like this, which is a compensatory behavior, and it will not strengthen the muscle we're looking to strengthen, the subscapularis. So you want to make sure you're really lifting straight up, nice and slow and controlled. And this one, you're going to feel more in the front of your shoulder or generally some muscle burn kind of in the shoulder joint itself. Then we're going to do what we call the serratus punch. So this is going to help encourage the shoulder blades to move better. So when we lift our arms, when we reach for stuff, we really want that shoulder blade to slide forward. So we're going to wrap the TheraBand around our back, right below our shoulder blades, hold both arms out, and then we're going to punch with one arm. So you can see my arm getting longer, my serratus anterior is activating, and my shoulder blade is sliding around my rib cage, so I'm encouraging proper movement there. And then finally, we're going to do a TheraBand external hold with a scapular squeeze. So you're just starting, holding the TheraBand, and then a slight engagement externally, very small there. But what we're focusing on are the muscles between the scapula here, right? So I'm going to have that TheraBand, and then I'm going to think about pulling down and back. So it's a very minor engagement. So you can see right now I'm not doing it, and there I just did it. So shoulder blades slid down and back. They're engaged. I'm holding 10 seconds, and then I'm going to relax, externally rotate. Shoulder blades come down and back. So you should feel the muscles right in between your muscles or your scapula working there. And you don't want to stick the rib cage out. You don't want to overdo it when you're doing that exercise. And then the last part is the mobilization or the stretching. And we're going to focus on the pecs, the lats, and the infraspinatus, just like we did with the rolling. So for the pecs, you're going to lay on your tummy. You can also do this on a wall, but I'm going to do it on the floor for now. Arm out at 90 degrees, elbow at 90 degrees. And I'm going to use my body rotation to stretch through my pec here. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping my hand and elbow flat on the floor. And for me, this is as far as I need to go. I don't need to try to rotate any further. I'm getting a great stretch here. I want to hold that for 30 to 45 seconds and do at least 2 sets. Then for my lat stretch, I'm going to grab something and hold it in between my hands. The reason for that is to maintain external rotation so I can stretch at the attachment. I'm going to place my elbows in front of me, and then I'm going to sink my butt back towards my heels. And I'm really thinking about kind of rounding my low back because that's going to help increase the stretch as I sink down towards my heels, and I should feel a stretch through the lats here. If you're having shoulder pain when you're doing this, then I suggest keeping the movement really small and going back to the roller and focusing more on the rolling. And the last stretch, I'll stay the same. Sometimes it's difficult to do if you're really tight, so then you can focus on just using the soft tissue mobilization with the ball or the roller. This is called the sleeper stretch. So it's as if you're taking a nap and you fall asleep on your shoulder. You want to kind of have the weight of the floor right on the back of your armpit. So you're not totally rotated forward, but I'm not all the way back on my back. And I'm gently going to press my forearm down towards the ground. This is more of a capsule stretch, so it's going to feel a little more sharp, maybe achy than a normal muscle stretch. And you should feel it kind of in the back of your arm into that shoulder area. Again, you might need to adjust the position of your shoulder. So you might need to move your arm up a little bit or down a little bit. If you're feeling any pain in the front of your shoulder, then I would suggest going back, like I said, and just using the ball in the infraspinatus and trying to open that up. So hopefully that addressed that question. And again, I can get back to you more specifically when I learn more from you. So I'll either take another question or I can move on to our last injury, which is plantar pain. So I'll wait for that answer.
We do have another question. Is regarding running, and here it goes. Sometimes after I run, I have some pain, tenderness right behind my knee. Is that an area that I can do foam rolling with?
That is a very good question. I am also going to default to sending you a personal email. I will say, because it's very dependent on where exactly that pain is. If it's directly behind the kneecap, really in the soft tissue, you do have to be a little bit careful about rolling there, because there are a lot of blood vessels and nerves that run right through that soft tissue area. So I will check the chat box and I'll send you an individual email, get some more information, and try to follow up in that way.
We have another one. Rebecca Hayes says, help for high hamstring tendopathy. Why am I prone to this? Am I doing something wrong in my stride? It's my dominant side.
Okay. I think, again, we don't quite have time to answer that question, but I will say we have a packet on our website that is directly related to hamstring injuries, and it will go over kind of all the same stuff that we're talking about here, exactly how to rehab it. And I can also follow up with you. Generally, with hamstring tendinopathy and stride, you may be overstriding, but it also may just be that at this point, the tissue is so taut that there's not a lot you could do in your stride to address it. You may have to do more of the rehab stuff and then get back to your normal running stride. Okay, so we're going to finish up with our plantar pain. I'm going to take my shoes off for this one. And we'll start with the soft tissue mobilization. So if you have some sort of stick or even a butter knife, that is very effective. We're going to start by working that plantar surface. So you want to make sure that your foot is flexed, and we're just going to be going from the bottom up to that big toe. And you want to put medium pressure. It's going to be painful, but it shouldn't be intolerable, right? We're going to do this for about a minute, really trying to warm up that tissue. And one of the problems with this area in healing is that it doesn't get a lot of blood flow. So we're trying to promote blood flow and promote healing. Then we can do cross friction. So oftentimes when you have plantar pain, there's a point of pain right near the heel. So you can find that spot with your thumb or both thumbs. You're going to stay on the spot and then just do tiny little movements on the spot. So I'm not trying to go over and back on the spot, right? I'm really trying to insert some pressure there, and then very small micro movements, just trying to, again, you're going to be working through if there's any scar tissue there, making that looser and promoting blood flow there as well. Then we also really want to work on opening up the calf. So we can use that stick again to work on the calf. This is a really easy way to kind of get some broad strokes and start to really loosen up the calf muscles. We want to focus a lot on that lower calf because that tends to get very tight and that limits the range of motion of the ankle, and that's going to affect how we run and how much pressure is put on the plantar surface. You can also use the foam roller for the calf, and you can have one leg at a time and just doing little motions here. You can add a leg to give a little bit more pressure and then moving the foot. So I'm flexing my foot back as I have some pressure on it, just to try to, again, lengthen that tissue as I'm using the roller to create some tension in the muscle. And so those are the two areas that you really want to work on opening up. Then as far as strengthening, we're going to try to strengthen all the muscles around the ankle and the foot. So one thing we can do is just toe walks and heel walks. So you're just standing up on your toes, nice and controlled, taking very little small steps and just trying to maintain stability and control while you do this. You can do this down a hallway, 10 feet or so, 5 times back and forth. Same thing with heel walk. So we're working on the front shin muscle, the anterior tibialis. Very small steps. Every time you take a step, you're thinking about pulling the toe up a little bit more, so increasing the activation of that muscle and helping the foot move into that dorsiflex position. We're also going to do calf raises. And when you're doing calf raises, ideally we're on a step. I don't have a step here today, but what we want to see is when you come up to the top position, you pause for a moment, and then as you come down very slowly. You lower your heels off of that step so that you're getting that kind of eccentric strength, which you really need for that push off in running. So again, you're going to come up nice and slow, pause, and then slowly lower down and off the step so you're getting a stretch at the end of that exercise. And then finally, we do exercises for the smaller muscles that kind of control stability in the ankle. So we can use a TheraBand. You can also use your hand. If you're doing the TheraBand, we're going to do 2 different positions or directions here. So I'm going to start with my toe down and in. Tension is being pulled this way. And then I'm going to bring my foot up and out. And that's going to use the peroneal muscle on the side of my shin here, and then slowly back down and in. Notice that I'm really controlling on the motion on the way back, so I'm not letting my foot just flop back. You can see it's a circular motion up and out. Should really feel this muscle working at the end, and then slow and controlled back down. I'm going to do the same thing, or the opposite, I should say, bringing the tension to the other side, starting with my foot up and out, and then coming down and in. Slow and controlled up and out, and down and in. You want to make sure that you're not letting your leg move, right? All this movement is coming from the ankle. You can also do this just manually, pressing up and in against your hand if you don't have a TheraBand handy, or if this just feels easier, it's that circular motion, and then the opposite, pushing down and out. And then finally, you're going to push up to work again on that shin muscle, just like when we did our heel walks. And then lastly, we're going to do some stretching for the foot, the calf, and the hamstring. So for the foot, we're trying to stretch that plantar surface. So again, you can cross your foot. You want to keep your foot flexed to start, and then you're going to kind of put your whole hand over the group of your toes and pull back, and trying to just create a stretch through that plantar surface. As you can see here, I'm making sure my foot's flexed, so not relaxed, and grab onto the toes and pull back and hold, so I feel a nice stretch through here, and we're holding for about 30 to 45 seconds. Then we're going to do calf stretch, and we're going to do 2 different calf stretches, one with the knee bent and one with the knee straight. So when you do a calf stretch, you have your foot behind you. When I'm bending my knee, I should feel that stretch more through the lower calf. And again, as I said before, that's really important to open that up, because that's going to really affect that push off for running. And you're going to hold that about 30 or 45 seconds. And then you're going to straighten your leg. You might move your leg back a little bit. This one, you're going to feel more in the upper calf area here. And that's stretching more of the gastroc, and holding that for 30 to 45 seconds. And then finally, a hamstring stretch. You can prop your leg on something not too high, or you can do a standing hamstring stretch, and just with your leg on the ground. Knee is slightly bent, so you want to keep that knee slightly bent when you do the stretch. Toe is pulled up. Drive your hips back so you feel a nice stretch through the hamstring here. You can adjust where you feel the stretch in the hamstring. If I turn inwards, I'm going to feel a stretch more in the inner part of my hamstring. If I rotate across my leg, I should feel a stretch to the outer part of my hamstring. Again, maintaining a slight bend in that knee, really thinking about pushing those hips back. And that's really the routine that we would give for the plantar pain. I think we have just maybe time for one more question. If not, I'm happy to, again, address the questions on the chat because I think we're out of time. And thank you again for joining us in the session.